If you've been watching my channel for a bit, then you might know that I've had the Push 3 for almost a month now. At least it feels like it's been a month. And so far, I've been pretty impressed with it, and I've also had some issues. I think I've talked about both things on this channel. I have a video coming out, I believe, next week with a special guest where I'm going to compare it to the Akai Force in a lot of detail. But this week, I want to focus on the things I really like about the Push and some of the beats I've made with it. So there are some areas of weakness I'm going to highlight in my next video, but I do want to show you some of the things I've been making because there's a lot to love about this thing. So let's start with my most recent beat. If you haven't already, consider liking and subscribing, and thank you so much to my Patreon patrons who help make this channel possible. I bought this gear with my own money. This is not sponsored in any way. I've just always been hyped about the idea of a standalone Push, and now we have one. So here's a beat that I think is kind of cool. So this one was really fun to make, and something you might notice if you can read this is these say MF eval, MF conch, MF conch, and so these are presets I made on the Mini Freak, and then MF sharp pedals is a stock preset, and I just recorded audio directly in. So if I were to solo this track. This is a bass patch that I then have side chained. If we go into the device itself, go back here, wrong track, here we go. There's a sidechain compressor that's taking the digibass as well to kind of add to the bass. And then if we go to this track, this is a conch, which is This is another preset that I made myself. I'm using the pitch bend for the first notes. And this is just audio recorded directly in with no effects added. Same with this one. This is another Mini Freak sound, but here I sampled a single note and then added a hybrid reverb. This is a clone of that same instrument. And then, like I said, this is a Mini Freak patch that is a stock preset. Except that I added auto filter, amp, auto pan, and echo to it. Other than those, everything is on device. So this is a drum kit I started with. Bang your head. And I play all my drums in on the pads. And then in this case, I added a quantization of, I believe, oh, it changed my quantize. That's annoying. I think it was about 90% plus some swing, but it didn't save that default setting. That's fine. And this is what those drums sound like. And I built it up, so the first version is a little bit less complex, I believe. But there's really not a lot of drum variation. That's something I would go back and add. Then we have this synth here. And this one, I believe, is ARPing. Yep. And this one's not MPE. But you can see the notes I played. Let's go to Digibass. This is very simple. And many of these sounds really highlight what I like about the pads, which is you really don't have to apply too much pressure to get a lot of the range. To me, they become a real competitor to the pads on the Machine Plus, with the added benefit that you have a lot more of them. Okay, and then the last instrument I use from the last Ableton instrument is this little patch called Last Dancer. I really liked how expressive you can get based on the pressure. This is another one that's not MPE, so there's not a lot of MPE in this one. But there's a lot of dynamic sound. Anyway, I thought this was a really fun project. It's not the only thing I've done so far, so let's check out another one. I'm not going to save because I didn't do anything I want to save here. Let's see. This, I think, is just a sound design session. I've talked about this before, but you can't save a full instrument rack. It's a limitation of the device right now. I talk about it a lot in next week's video because I'm pretty frustrated that you can't just consolidate this and save as an instrument rack. On a PC, you would just select all of these devices and then save as an instrument rack. If I try to make this an instrument rack, it will replace analog with an instrument rack, but you can't add analog to it. Unless someone knows how, please comment below. But as of the time of recording, you can't really make your own presets, loading in a knit patch and then adding effects and then saving an instrument rack. Or you can make them, but you can't save them. But I made this and I thought it sounded really cool. Anyway, let's see the solitary flare. Okay, these are all auto-named. When you hit save, it gives it an auto-name. And I really like that. It's a feature I really enjoy in the Polyend tracker. It's cool to see it here. Yeah, I think this one's cool. Oh, yeah. I love this one. You may have seen this on my Instagram. This one definitely needs more work. This one does have an MPE track on here. And I did get a comment from someone who doesn't seem to understand what MPE is or like why it's different. So it's not just polyphonic aftertouch, it's also polyphonic pitch modulation per note. It allows you to get really, really expressive in a way I have not seen on a different device. Let's see what else we got. I think this is another sound design session. Not the best example, but you know, it's fun. Check out Grand Light. Something I'll highlight that you maybe have picked up, and this could totally be subjective, so maybe I'm off the mark here, but I really do feel like the sound quality of the instruments and the overall like quality of the things I'm putting together is generationally higher than most of what I've gotten out of the other boxes I use. I think the Machine Plus is pretty close, but this does seem like it sounds better than the Akai Force and the MPCs. It's where I think the strength of being a DAW that's been put into a box versus being a box that builds up to a DAW. I think the strength is the sound quality. There's limitations like I'll talk about in my Force versus Push video coming out next week, but this one really does just sound so good. Even, you know, I'm not saying that the composition I made here is amazing. This was obviously a little thing from scratch. It's a single scene, but the actual... the quality of like the hybrid reverb and the various presets they've already made, but just the sounds of these synths and the drums and the way everything sounds with the effects on it, it really does sound just good to my ear. And it feels like it's harder to make something that sounds whack. From a sound quality perspective, again, it's very easy to compose something that sounds whack on anything. Such as that. I think that sounds whack. All right, I think I had a request to kind of go over more a beat I made or showed in a different video, so I'm going to talk about that one as well, and then we'll call it for this video. So again, thank you so much for liking and subscribing, and thank you so much to everyone who's watched and supported my channel. We're getting really close to, I think, 9,000 subscribers, so I'll very soon be able to say the channel is over 9,000, and that's very exciting. But no, seriously, thank you so much. Okay, so yeah, I talked about this one a little bit, and I think I've added even more to this beat. Or maybe not. Maybe the reel had less. The YouTube video had more, but I didn't talk about how I made it. So let's talk about this one. Let's show it. So something you might notice is it looks like I'm playing the same chord here. And if this was not MPE, it would just be this note the whole time. With those notes. But because it is MPE, oh wow, that sounds exactly like Sylvia by the Antlers. That's so cool. Anyway, this is where the expressive nature of MPE is really cool. This one's called Icing Key, not MPE. Let's see, what is this? This is a wavetable synth. Sounds cool though, right? Alright, this one is just a vocal sample, I think. And this is the drum kit I use. So I use this one, you can see that there. And oh yeah, this isn't the primary drum kit. This is just a drum kit. This is the primary drum kit. Yeah, and this one I actually use the repeat effects here. You can change the velocity just by changing the pressure. You can do that on other devices too. That's not exclusive to the Push 3. And then I kind of built out even more. So here we've got... This was actually just a raw guitar note. I was trying to figure out how to use my guitar in this, and I forgot that I had in the audio settings, I had set it up to have a really high input level, and because I was using a mic before that, and so it sounded really bad. And so instead of trying to actually record guitar in, I got a single note that I felt like sounded okay, and then I just added all these effects. So EQ8, auto filter, amp, pedal, auto pan, cut it, and hybrid reverb. Oh yeah, simpler instruments, audio samples can have MPE sliding by default. That's fun. And then we added some additional stuff. Yeah, this is my favorite thing I've made on the Force, or on the Push, sorry. Listen to that bass. instrument is this? This is bass. If you click into that, it's an analog with a bunch of stuff. It's like a nested instrument rack. And then this is chromatic voices. Let's see, how did I do this? Now I'm not seeing any notes. There were notes. Oh yeah, I froze this. I froze this because, see if I can, I don't know if I can see that I did that. But yeah, this is frozen because this was a really effects heavy thing and I just needed this to kind of go the way it went. I was going for kind of like a Hudson Mohawk Watch Dogs 2 soundtrack, sort of da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's see, I'll solo that. I don't know how to do just a pure stutter effect, like a really sharp stutter the way you can on the Force and the MPCs. If anyone knows, please put that in the comments. But sometimes I kind of like messing up, or like trying to get to something and not quite doing it, because you get something new. So I've talked about this before, but if I wanted to finish this song and make it an actual song, I would need to basically load it up into Ableton on the computer. I surprised my guest in my video that's coming out next week when I explained that I've never connected the Ableton Push 3 to Ableton. I've never connected this to a computer except for when I had to authorize the license by putting in like a code or something. Otherwise, I really just want to use it in standalone. I want to do everything in standalone. I love not having to talk to a computer. And so when I want to finish these songs, especially a song like this that I really like, I will basically load the same project in Ableton on my computer and then play it into the arranger, and then I can do some additional mixing, mastering, adding third-party VSTs and stuff like that. If I wanted to, I could then put it back into session mode or just add those third-party clips into session mode and then export them or freeze the tracks that were third-party and then open it back up in here, hypothetically. And then I could perform the song with some additional layers, or I could just perform the version I made on the Push before I finished it up on my computer. So that's cool, but I do really still kind of feel like there should be at least a simple arranger where you can play your whole arrangement, because people in my comments will tell you you can record to the arranger, but it's like hidden, right? So you can't actually see what you're doing. You can't export the stems out of here. You could have a saved arrangement and then load that in your computer, and I guess that's cool. But every other device lets you export stems after building out a song. Even the MPCs, where it's just chaining patterns, basically. I want something like that. Even though I would open most of my stems in Ableton anyway, I just still think at a $2,000 price for just the hardware, not even including like a suite license, which I think is actually $600 or $500-ish if you've already bought the Push. So I get that wrong in the Force versus Push video, so apologies there. But still, it's missing some features, and I'm going to talk about those a lot more next week in comparison to the Akai Force. But I do want to just highlight there's a lot I love about this. I am going to keep it because I've dreamed about this device for years. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Don't buy a device based on what you think it can be in the future or updates you think it'll get. Buy it based on what it is today. If this isn't what you want already, I would say wait for it to be that, but it already is a lot that I love, and so I'm pretty happy with it. I think the last thing we're going to do, and then I'll let you go, is just play a little bit with the MPE some more, because I really think people don't understand how cool the MPE is, and that's okay, because I didn't understand how cool the MPE was, but y'all, it's really cool. So I have to go to sounds and then MPE sounds. Not every MPE sound is really cool, but what can be done with it is very cool. Wait, I have preview off. Try that one. So that's pressure and slide on the pad and pitch. And that's per note. So you can call and response, you know what I'm saying? So this sounds kind of inharmonic. It's not like really, not my favorite sound, but it's kind of showing you what can be done here. Yeah, I just really feel like... Okay, so this is just pressure. These different quartets will sometimes have different... So you can almost get that feeling of a bow going back and forth. Just like the end of Madness by Muse. So long. You know what I mean? And I don't know. There's just so much you can do. And it's like a box of really cool toys, and all they have to do is really tighten up the software, add a little bit more to it, and it could be just truly one of the first major portable studios all in a box. All in one device. You pay a hefty price for it, but I do think there's some value here. But if you're really interested in seeing how it compares to the Akai Force and my thoughts on that, along with a special guest, tune in next week, because that's going to be cool too. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll see you soon.